In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to insert, update, delete, and select rows from a database using a Java program. This is a continuation of my previous video on how to connect to a database using Java. I assume that you watched that video, and that's after that video that's where I start with this one. So what we will do is we'll create a Java class and we're going to save it in the same directory as the mysql jar file, connector jar file is, and also in the same directory where my connect.java resides. This is all for simplicity. I want to do this as bare bones as possible. So the classes I'm going to use here are a Java connection, because I'll need that to access the database. SQL exception, because if anything goes wrong in the database, that's the exception I'm going to get. I'm going to use two other variables, two other classes, statement and prepared statement. This will allow me to use SQL against the database. I'm going to also use the result set class, which will actually allow me to capture the results returned by select, for example. And I will use the class big decimal because I'll need it for one of the things that I'm going to do, insertions, deletions, and stuff like that. So let's start. I'm going to call this class dbops. I'm saving it in the file dbops.java, as you can see here at the bottom. And I'm going to create a main method here. Very simple, right? Public static void main, very conventional. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a connection from my connect.java class that we looked at before. I'm going to get a connection, and I'm going to run one of my little examples using that connection. Then I will close the connection. This is all this method does, and of course it captures the SQL exception should it happen. So what happens is the first example that I'm going to run is an insert example, and I'm going to explain it. So the insert example function is right here. It's right here is this one. Everything in green, that's the insert example method. Okay, the insert example method will get a connection and will throw the SQL exception. All my methods are going to do the same for this example. Now, this is very simple. We create a string, I'm going to call it SQL, with actually the insert statement, right? Insert into booking, guest number. These are all the fields and the values. So it's worth to actually take a look at the bookings table. I have it here in my SQL workbench. I have a bookings table with a guest number, which, as you can see down here, is an int and is the primary key. Date arrive, which is of type date. Date depart, which is of type date. Price, which is of type decimal. Room number, which is of type integer. And notes, which is of type varchar. If I am using the test database, if I select everything from booking, I'll get all these rows here. Okay, guest numbers 101, 102, 3, 4, and 5. These are their notes, nothing for these, regular service, pool view for others. Here's the date arrive, date depart, the price, 500 to 50, it all depends, and the room numbers. Okay, so this is what I have on the table. Now, I'm going to insert into bookings. I'm going to insert the guest number, date arrived, depart, price, room number, and notes, which are all the fields. And here's the interesting part. I'm adding to that string, right? I could actually have done it all in one line, but I decided not to. I will add the values, and then I will put question marks on all six, for all 6 fields. And then what I'm going to do later is I'm going to fill out these parameters. When you put a question mark on an SQL string, this becomes a parameter. And parameters are numbered. This is the first parameter. This is the second parameter, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth parameter here. Okay? Now, these parameters start from index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, as opposed to 0, 1, and so on, as all Java arrays and all Java enumerations. For SQL, indices start at 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a prepared statement. From my connection variable, I will create a prepare statement SQL. A prepare statement allows me to fill in these parameters. And the way to fill these parameters is, now that I have my prepare statement, I can say set an integer on the first parameter, and the integer value is going to be 34. So basically, this parameter here will become 34, which corresponds to the guess number. So set the guess number to 34, and it's an integer. Then the second parameter, right? Set the second parameter to a date. And the date, to create a date, one easy way to do it is do a java.sql.date.valueOf. This will create a date in milliseconds for March 7th of 2018. Okay. The same thing for that was the date arrived. Now for the date depart, I will again set a date, and that's going to be my third parameter. It's going to be this date. It's going to be March 13th of 2018. Now for number 4, what's my parameter number 4? 1, 2, 3, 4 is price. And price, if we recall, price here was a decimal. Not an integer, but a decimal. So in order to set a decimal, I need this class, the big decimal. So my parameter 4 is going to be 390.50. That's the price, right? But I need to wrap it around a big decimal. So that's how I do it. Now, the room number was an integer, so I'm going to set an integer. Parameter 5, which is the room parameter 5, which is the room number. I'm going to set it to room 325. And then notes, which is a varchar, basically a string. I'm going to use the setString method. That's parameter 6, and I'm going to do not disturb. That's going to be my notes. Okay. Now that's the prepared statement. So that's the prepared statement, and this is how I fill in the parameters. Okay, this is how I fill in the parameters for that prepared statement. Now, how do we execute this statement? Well, with the method executeUpdate. ExecuteUpdate executes any insert, updates, or deletions, right? And what it returns is an integer telling me how many rows were affected by the statement. And then I can check whether if the rows are greater than 0, then I'm going to print out a new booking was inserted successfully. This is my insert example, which I'm going to run right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compile this class, compiling it, and then I'm going to run it assuming that I have my connect.java compiled and assuming that I have my jar file for MySQL in the same folder. So here it is, Java, class path, the current folder, and the jar file, and that's my Java class that I'm going to run. I'll run it, and it says a new booking was inserted successfully. And if we look into, if we select again from bookings, you will see that ID 34 was just inserted here with do not disturb as the comment, 325 the room, 390.5 is the price, staying from 7th of March to the 13th of March of 2018. So we've successfully inserted a row. Now to update a row, I'm going to change this here to update example. Update example. And then if we look at the method update example right here, this is my update example method. Okay, let's look at it. Let's examine it. It has the same signature as the insert example. Needs a connection, throws an exception, and it starts the same. We start with a string SQL, which is going to be update booking, which is our table. I'm going to set the price to something else and the notes to something else where some condition is met. And you see that I have question marks where I will then fill out with values later. These are parameters. I again create a prepared statement using that SQL, and then in my statement, just like the insert, I can set a big decimal for the first parameter, which is the price. That's the first parameter. Whoops, that's the first parameter, price. So I will set the price to a big decimal, 450 this time. I'm going to update the price to 450. Then I'm going to set the second parameter, which is a string, which is the notes. I'm going to set it to premium toiletry requested. That's why the price went up. And then I'm going to set the third parameter, which is guest number, to 34. So I'm going to update the guest that I just created. I'm going to up the price a bit, and then I'm going to change the notes. Again, I will execute update with the statement, so that'll give me the rows affected. And if they're greater than 0, it means successfully updated however many rows it updates. In this case, it's going to be just 1. So we can run this. We can compile again because I changed the class. So I will compile. I will run this. And we see that I successfully updated 1 row. We go to, in this case, MySQL Workbench. We run this select again. And we see that the comment changed to premium toiletry requested and the price changed to 450. So this worked. Let's look now at a delete example. So next time I compile this and run it, I'm going to run a delete example. Delete works exactly the same. We'll create an SQL, which is delete from booking, where data_rive equals question mark, meaning the data_rive is a parameter. I might choose not to have parameters, and that's fine too, okay? But I'm choosing to have parameters on these. Now, I create my prepare statement, and there's only 1 parameter, so I'm going to set it, and the data_rive, it's a date. So where the date, the first parameter, is the date value of this date. So basically, I'm going to delete whoever will arrive on March 7th of 2018, which is really just the user we inserted. Again, if I execute update the statement, then I'm going to get the rows affected, and I'm going to say successfully deleted however many rows affected. So let's save this. Let's compile this now that I change my main to delete example. Let's compile this and run it. And it says successfully deleted 1 row. We should not see the row that we had just inserted. So this row, if I run this again, you will see that I don't have this row anymore. Okay, I do not have this row anymore. That's delete. Now, the other example where things change a bit is a select. So I'm going to change my main here to select example. And my select example, here's my function. The signature of the function is the same, but here's what's interesting. I'm going to create an SQL. I could have, if I have parameters, I need a prepare statement. If I don't have parameters, my statement can just be a create statement. You see how on the other ones from connection, I prepare statement? Here I just create a statement and I use the statement class, which I imported up top. So I'm going to create a statement, and then here's the thing. The statement, I will call execute query on that statement. Execute query doesn't return the number of rows affected. It actually returns a result set object. And a result set object, I can loop through a result set object. I'm going to create a variable count. I was going to count how many results are there, but I didn't. So you can actually not have this variable. It's totally fine. So then I go through a while loop. While results next, this is an iterator, right? So where result next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a string. The guest number is going to be result and then get string 1. Now if I select star from booking, what I'm really selecting is guest number, date arrive, date depart, price, room number, notes in that order. So the first parameter is guest number. So guest number, I'm going to get a result get string. You notice that the guest number is an integer, but if I get string, it's going to convert it into a string, and that's useful because I'm going to concatenate it all at the end to display it. The date arrive, which is the second parameter, right? I'm also getting it as a string. I could get it as a date and then change it. There's get, string, get int, get many methods. The date depart, I'm going to get it, but then I don't say 3. Instead, I just put the name of the column, date depart. Actually, this is, for me, what I really like to do. You can get string, get int, get whatever, using either the index of the column that was returned or the name of the column that was returned. So you can do get string and then the name of the column. Then a big decimal price, I will get it using get big decimal. I could get it using a string as well, but I just want to illustrate getting something other than a string. So getting big decimal and then the column name price. That's going to go into a big decimal. Room number is going to go directly into an int because I'm going to use the get int method. Again, I could use get string for all of these. Notes, well, that's a string, so I'm just going to get the get string. When do I want to use the get string? When I want to print. When do I want to use get with the real type? If I want to do something with that variable afterwards, like compare, check whether the room number is something or other, or, stuff like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to print everything concatenated. That's all the select statement does. So to recap, I create a statement here, right? And then I execute the execute query method, which returns a result set, and then I extract for every result here, I will extract the different fields, the different values for the columns, and then I will just print them. Okay, so now let's compile this guy, and let's run it. We should see a list of, right here, list of all the users with the arrival date, departure date, the price per room, the room number, and the notes that can be put there. And we can see that it's the same as here. It's the same number of, it's the same users as here. So that basically concludes the tutorial on how to do database operations using Java.